Good morning everybody. The weather has slightly changed, not too bad thankfully, but we can show you rain on the surface of the MLD event bivy, and you can see there is nothing on the inside. It's thankfully completely dry, as is my quilt. So, and we had, I don't know how much rain we had, to be honest, but I know when I woke up a couple of times during the morning and I could hear rain falling, so we must have had an hour or two, you know, at least of rain, is an approximate guesstimation. But the weather doesn't look too bad. I've checked the forecasters. If I've got this little sort of strap here that I've rigged up. So if I put my phone in there, then there's just about enough signal to get the weather. And it does show, yesterday it showed clear today, no rain, but then when I look now it shows 2 millimeters of rain for this morning and then clear this afternoon. So I'm kind of hoping that we've had most of those 2 millimeters of rain. How much rain is 2 millimeters? I know 2 millimeters is obviously that much, but you know, is that like a heavy shower? Is that like a thunderstorm? You know, is that a heavy downpour, a light downpour? You know, what on earth is 2 millimeters of rain? I would have thought we must have had 2 millimeters already. I mean, that drop of rain there, that must be 1 millimeter drop there. So we must have had most of our 2 millimeters by now. Oh dear, is that what I'm relegated to now? Not bloody 6 inches, but 2 millimeters. Oh God. Anyway, we're going to have to slowly start to pack up in camp over the next hour or so, because we've got that awful southerly 4-hour drive on the A roads that have never heard of a motorway or a dual carriageway, all the way back to the southwest. And it's quite literally the last 10% of the journey that's on motorway or something ridiculous like that. You know, at least from the Lake Districts, you've got like 10 or 15% of the beginning of the journey is on the A roads, and then the rest of it you can bomb down the motorway, or most of the journey from Dartmoor is up the A road. In fact, nearly all of from Dartmoor, apart from a tiny bit, is dual carriageway, and then you're on the motorway. So this is not a particularly fun or enjoyable drive, it has to be said, but I have to say it went fairly quickly for 4 hours, so I hope that 4 hours goes as quickly going back. But the stops, there's just nowhere to stop. You just got to be lucky to find a pub or something like that. It's quite a bizarre, I don't know what it is with Wales. I'm sure I've got some Welsh followers. Well, I'm sure I used to have some Welsh followers. But I don't know what it is about Wales, but they just never heard of, they never heard of decent roads, and now they want to reduce some of the roads down to 20 miles an hour, for God's sake. Talk about anti-car, bloody hell. Anyway, enough of my complaining about everything. We're in camp, obviously, and my first pillow lasted, well, up until the last trip. So whenever I got it until the last trip is pretty much when the last pillow lasted. Then I noticed that it started to deflate on me, unfortunately. And now, when I got them from eBay, I got two the same size and one bigger one, and I've used the one that's the same size, and it failed immediately. Literally I think it was the first morning I woke up. It was fine the night before, and then I woke up the next morning and my head was resting on my mattress almost, and it had gone down. So unfortunately, Shane, this one hasn't lasted more than one night, so it might be worth my while contacting them, but I've had it a while now. But yeah, it's a little bit disappointing and annoying. I do, as I've mentioned with my other pillows, tend to blow them up and then use them as a support under my elbow and shoulder type of thing, you know, to lean on. But they should still survive that. I mean, you know, they're made in America, and let's face it, all Americans are like, you know, well, they're not petite, are they? I'll try and be diplomatic. You know, they're not, a lot of Americans are not petite. And that's because they're that's because they're like Dwayne Johnson. They're muscular, not because they're fat bastards, but because they're muscular like Dwayne Johnson. You see, we escaped we escaped that one, didn't we? We didn't call them fat bastards. We call them all like Dwayne Johnson. You see, all full of muscles. And that's why this is rated at like 160 pounds of pressure. Well, I think I only weigh maybe 170 or 180 pounds. I'm about 11 and a bit stone, whatever that is in pounds. And I wasn't standing on the bloody thing. I was just leaning on it. So I don't really see why it would fail with me, with my little short, fat, hairy stomach, you know, leaning on it, really. So unfortunately, this one, you know, didn't survive the trip, so it might be worth contacting them and just see what they say. This Sunblesa torch is good. My only reservation with this, and I'm not sure that I would risk it somewhere. I think I'd be okay on Dartmoor with it, but I'm not sure I'd risk it somewhere, you know, that I didn't know where I was or that I didn't have a backup. It's working, but I was 2 nights ago, because mostly it's actually not dark until 10 o'clock still. And I've not really used it because, like I said, it's dark at 10 o'clock. And apart from the second night that I was here, when I didn't go to bed until about midnight, most of the evenings I've gone to bed just about before it was dark. So I've not really used it very much. But the second night when I used it, it just died. No warning, no flashing, you're on 20%, 10%, no warning whatsoever, nothing. And it just died, it just stopped. And if you were out walking, you know, from A to B in the dark and you were relying on this, okay, I guess if it was fully charged, you know, you should get a few hours out of it. The only thing is, I can't remember, maybe I forgot to charge it up from the previous trip. Now, normally I charge everything up. I go home and I charge everything up the first night or the second day. Basically, I don't put anything away if you can call it putting anything away with my stuff. It's a bit of a mess. I don't put anything away until I've charged it up. And then I might, when I take it out before getting going again, just check everything just to make sure that it has a charge. And I will admit, I can't remember whether I charged this up or not. I thought I did, but I can't say for sure. And given the amount of time that I've used it this trip, just leads me to believe that maybe I didn't, because it's literally an hour one evening, and it's not going to die after an hour. So maybe I forgot. But having said that, I wouldn't have used it that much the previous trip either, because it was in July. And, you know, I just wouldn't have used it very much. So I don't really know how reliable or how long the battery is going to be on this, because I definitely would have charged it up before the previous trip. I'm sure I'm not going to go 3 trips without charging it up. It just doesn't seem me. Although whether I'm ever me, I don't know. But then you could go and say, well, okay, maybe you haven't charged it up for 2 or 3 trips. Again, because it's being bright sunlight until like 10 or 11 o'clock, I just wouldn't have used it very much anyway. So I think that's something I will just monitor on this and just see what the battery is like. But the main waffleization of this particular thing, I'm not going to bother doing a separate video on it, but the main waffleization of this is not going to give you a warning before it stops, you know, like a Petzl or something like that. It'll normally give you like some little flashes, which I'm guessing indicates like 25% left or something like that. This isn't going to give any warning whatsoever. You're just going to be doing something with your head torch on, and then it's just going to stop, and you're going to be left in the dark with nothing. So just bear that in mind if you're getting one of these Chinese Sunblesa torches. They really need to have some sort of thing in there that gives you a little blip at so many percentages. I need to get onto these people and maybe try and get this one replaced and see if I can get some more, because the last one, like I said, this one lasted literally one night, barely one night. It's a few drops of rain coming down again now. The last one lasted however long. I mean, it must have been what, 6 months? 4-6 months, and they're only £5, and they weigh nothing. You know, they're so light, they're floaty light. You know, you can literally just stuff them in somewhere, and for a £5, you can't really go wrong. So if I could spend spend a penny, if I could spend £5 every 6 months on one of these, and it lasted that long, now that would be fine. I wouldn't worry about that, because they're so light, and they're comfortably enough. They don't really make much noise. They make a bit of noise, but not much. And let's face it, once you've got your head lying down and you're falling asleep, they're not making a noise anyway because you're sleeping. I've got my porridge made up there, and I just need to start packing up, you know, very slowly. I've only got about an hour left on this memory card, so I just want to be a little bit careful that I don't just use it all up, you know, too quickly. Anyway, I will, oh, pardon me. Oh, God. Anyway, I'll catch you all a bit later. Well, Lassie has found a nest in the trees. She's found a nest down here. She's found a nest over there. And when I woke up this morning, she was in this little area here. So the only traces that we'll be leaving will be where Lassie has sort of flattened some vegetation in the process of trying to make herself comfortable for the night, which frankly is no different to a sheep or something like that lying down. So we're just in the process. We've put the nighttime stuff away in the pack. It's starting to rain again, so I'm going to pull my legs back in again. I'm going to roll this up before it gets before it gets wet. I had quite literally put it there just to let it dry for a minute, and then it basically decides that it's just going to rain anyway, so I'm just going to roll the bivy up. I tend to roll the bivy from the base to the top because you get a lot of air caught up in it, and I'm kind of the thought process that if you leave the zip open a tiny fraction, it's a little bit, I'm going to just scoot back a bit more here, it's a little bit easier to get it squished down flat. I'm hoping this is the last little bit of millimetre of rain that's forecast, of that 2 millimetres of rain today. So that's the bivy packed in there, and I personally, I know some people put their tents inside a pack, but I must admit, to me it just makes more sense. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I just think it makes more sense to put your shelters and such like on the outside, and then you can access them, you know, super quickly. I'll have to decide what to do. My wind shirt, I think I'm gonna pack actually, because I think I'm gonna wear my raincoat, although on the off chance my raincoat gets wet again, I think I'm going to keep that wind shirt near the top. Now don't forget to take all of your rubbish with you. So I've got a dedicated rubbish bag here, so I put all rubbish in there. I like this one. I don't know whether Podsac still do this, but it's actually a dedicated waste sack, and it's actually ideal because you get an inner closable section, and then obviously then there's this outer closable section. Well, I like to put my toilet paper in that outer section, so if I have to go off for a necessary, you basically just carry that with you, and you've got your toilet paper in the top, and then you're bound to have a food packet or something in the bottom that you can basically use for, you know, putting your toilet paper. But yeah, because I've got this pack and it's not a waterproof pack, then I've put a black bag inside just to give the contents, you know, a little bit of extra protection. Everything's in stuff sacks and stuff like that, but I must admit some of these Cuban fibre stuff sacks are very old now, and they're getting, Cuban fibre is very good, it's very light, but it doesn't last forever, and it does, after many years of use, it does start to get threadbare. I might keep that handy. Okay, so I think we're making quite good progress here now. I've already got food out, so I don't need that food. So okay, well basically I'm going to carry on packing, and I will see you lot a little bit later.